What's up, heathens? How ya doing? Today we're going to be doing a little bit different of a video. We're actually going to be going over an article that Braxton Hunter shared on Twitter, and I gave him a little bit of crap for his excuse was that he was just sharing it to stir conversation. That's all fine and good, but it just the way that you shared it, Braxton, made it seem like you were agreeing with the positions that this particular blog post was pushing. Now, this is not something that was written back in like 2015. This was actually written in March of 2018. And I cannot believe that people are still pushing these just horrible ideas about atheism. So if you want to hear 5 completely untrue facts about atheists that we need to hear, then please stay tuned. Okay, so like I said, different kind of video. We're going to be going through a blog article, right? And the title of it is 5 Uncomfortable Facts Atheists Need to Hear. Number 1, atheism is responsible for more deaths than Judaism or Christianity. And they start off fantastically by saying fascism and communism, both of which are were atheist ideologies, murdered more than 150 million people in the 20th century alone. Now, while irreligious people may have been behind those particular movements, that does not make them inherently atheistic ideologies. Well, first of all, there's no atheist ideology, right? Atheism is just a non-belief in a deity, right? We just simply lack that belief. That can't be an ideology. That's like building a house with one piece of wood. What in the fuck are you gonna do with that one fucking piece of wood? It goes on to say, communists and other godless regimes have continued to kill hundreds of thousands since. Add the millions of rapes, tortures, and enslavements by the same godless regimes, and you've got yourself a pretty ugly picture. Are you sure you're talking about atheism here? Because it seems more like Christianity that you're talking about, because, I mean, that was directly because of the Christian theology. They had this idea that they had to go out and conquer the entire world for Jesus, and they were going to convince you to become a Christian, or they were going to force you to become a Christian, and it's also how they dehumanized other people to be less than human, and that meant that, you know, graping people was fine. The atheist's favorite go-to accusation against Christianity includes the Inquisition, the Crusades, the Salem witch trials, and the church pedophilia scandal. Kind of seems like we've got a lot of go-tos and not just some singular go-to. We have many examples of how shitty Christians have been across the ages. However, even assuming that all such wrongs occurred as a direct result of church doctrine, they did not, but let's assume so. Oh, really? I would love to hear your argument for why they weren't because of church doctrine. They were definitely due to the beliefs that Christianity held and the beliefs that were pushed by the congregants of Christianity. The numbers dwarf in comparison to what atheism has wrought. What specifically has atheism wrought? Because I'm gonna go on from this point because the rest of it's just as much bullshit. But the fact that you're claiming that fascism and communism are atheist ideologies is just ridiculous, because they're not atheism is not an ideology, and also fascism and communism are not atheistic ideals. Like the prime component of those is not atheism. Number 2, Hitler was not a Christian. Oh my god. Oh yes, Hitler was a Christian. Like, I get that you don't want to admit that Hitler was a Christian, but Hitler was definitely Christian as fuck, okay? I've actually got a clip that I'm going to play right now where I go through all of Hitler's very Christian quotes, which it's not all of them. It's just a selection of them, but it comes from a vast number of Christian quotes that you could attribute to Hitler. Hence today I believe that I am acting in accordance with the will of the Almighty Creator. By defending myself against the Jew, I am fighting for the work of the Lord. Sooner will a camel pass through a needle's eye than a great man be discovered by an election. Certainly, we don't have to discuss these matters with the Jews, the most modern inventors of this cultural perfume. Their whole existence is an embodied protest against the aesthetics of the Lord's image. Once again, the songs of the fatherland roared to the heavens, along with endless marching columns, and for the last time the Lord's grace smiled on his ungrateful children. The greatness of Christianity did not lie in attempted negotiations for compromise with any similar philosophical opinions in the ancient world, but in its inexorable fanaticism in preaching and fighting for its own doctrine. Let's see how this person rationalizes away the Christian nature of Hitler. Atheists routinely urge that Nazis were Christians, invoking Christianity to justify their horrors. This is false. Nazism and fascism never held themselves out as Christian enterprises. More particularly, Hitler himself despised Christianity. He saw Christianity as meek and flabby and sought to destroy it root and branch. He bemoaned why Germany was stuck with feeble-minded Christianity and preferred other strong-arm systems. That's really weird because I've got a literal quote that I just played from Hitler that was praising Christianity for its ability to spread its theology. So I don't understand why you would say these things, not quote them or give us any kind of reference to actually look at. You're just saying these things. So until you can provide some evidence that he actually thought this way, I would really appreciate it if you would just not push that kind of bullshit. Next up, number 3. Atheism is an ideology, whether you realize it or not. Oh man, I cannot wait to see your reasoning behind this bullshit point. The most common argument is that atheism is not an ideology. It merely reflects the absence of faith in a religion. They just don't believe in God. Why can't we please leave them alone? But it turns out they don't want to leave you alone. Oh yes, it's the atheists that are the big meanies out there that are wanting to force you to... Let me check my notes here. Hold on. Follow the law. Fucking atheists. On social media, most atheists are bizarrely vocal about their contempt for Christianity and, to a lesser extent, Judaism for their beliefs. They believe these religions frustrate progress. They argue with great passion that we'd be better off if we just eradicated God once for all. Godless regimes have always sought the eradication of God with passionate zeal, deadly efficiency on a mass scale, and unspeakable cruelty. So what they're talking about here is actually state atheism, and that's a lot different than what we commonly have now as a social group being atheists, right? State atheism definitely was a bad idea and was implemented in those regimes that you've already mentioned. But as I said before, state atheism is not atheism. Those are two completely different things. Also, I would say that most atheists don't want to eradicate God belief whatsoever. I mean, I would think that most people would want to educate others to the point where believing in magical, supernatural explanations for things is just not needed. That's how everything has progressed in the past. As soon as we've educated ourselves up to a point, we throw off those supernatural explanations. We don't need them anymore because we're smart enough to understand the natural things. And that's not to say that Christians are dumb or anything like that. That's not what I mean. I'm saying us collectively as a society have educated ourselves to the point where we don't need these supernatural explanations for things. But still, I don't understand why your false equivalence of state atheism with atheism means that atheism is an ideology. Such thinking is an ideology. Such non-belief has devastating consequences. Not believing in God is like not believing in seatbelts. Are you fucking serious right now? Not believing in God is the same as not believing in seatbelts? Okay. For one thing, seatbelts have a measurable effect on deaths due to car accidents. We can literally measure that. What can we literally measure about God? Give me one thing that we can actually test for with God that is in any way comparable to fucking seatbelts. Seatbelts are physical things in this world. God isn't. Even by your own theology, God isn't. Or better yet, it's like not believing in the police, the judiciary, medicine, or fire stations. These are all physical things in reality that we can measurably test and know to exist in reality. But we can't do that for God. So there's no way that a non-belief in something that we simply cannot detect is the same thing as a fucking police station. You don't have to believe in them, but living in a world without them has consequences. I mean, I get that you're comparing state atheism here to governments that rely on God, but wouldn't you really consider the governments that do rely on God and the governments that are these state atheist governments, which, just to burst your bubble here, America is a secular nation. We don't have God at the forefront of it. We protect a belief in God, but our government is meant to be a secular one that is irreligious. So when you actually compare the state atheist governments and the governments that directly rely on God for their government, they become eerily similar, don't they? They become almost the exact same thing. You see the exact same horrible things that in both types of government. So, I mean, state atheism is not atheism, so you can't pin that on us. Those governments versus that government, you really can't discern between the two, other than the fact that one actively seeks to destroy any kind of religion, the other one actively seeks to push a religion. They're two sides of the exact same fucking coin. All right, number 4. People of faith are responsible for a huge amount of good in our society. I can't disagree with this one right off the bat. I do agree that people of faith can do good things. And I think that people of non-faith can do an equal amount of good things. I think that there's good on both sides. But what I do think is that in order to make somebody that is good do something horrible, you definitely need an irrational belief in order to make them do that. Something irrational like religion. I'm not saying that everybody is irrational because they're religious. I'm just saying that religion itself is irrational, and that's what it would take to convince a good person to do a bad thing. Atheists don't give credit for what the church and Judaism have done for civilization. The creation of our notions of justice, the hospital system, the university, public schools, charity, progress, truth, and freedom itself. Are you fucking crazy with this shit? Judaism and Christianity are not responsible for those things. They are not responsible for the creation of those things. Like the hospital system, while Christians or religious people in general may have started those things or may have started university public schools, which the public schools is kind of bullshit, because while certain neighborhoods and stuff, they started up religious school systems, the public schools that we actually have that it is kind of referencing here is completely separate from that and is different, right? So we set up the public school systems to be secular so that they wouldn't push any one religion on them. Universities, I get that Christians probably founded almost every university out there now, but the fact is that just because somebody is Christian and they discovered something or founded something does not make that something inherently religious. Also, it's just so hilarious to know that you think that the church, Christianity and Judaism has brought about truth and freedom itself. Have you read the fucking Bible? There's no truth in the Bible. There's no freedom in the Bible. If anything, the Bible is directly antithetical to the idea of freedom. Who fought against and ultimately destroyed the evils of slavery? Oh shit. No, it wasn't Christianity. Christianity didn't fight against slavery. It was a social movement that fought against slavery. Those that were in bondage, they fought against slavery. Those that had empathy for others fought against slavery. It wasn't Christianity. In fact, Christianity pushed slavery for hundreds of years. So I don't care how many Christians help destroy slavery or upset the slave trade or whatever. Like, I don't care how many Christians did it. The fact is that those were humans with empathy, regardless of their religious ideals. They wanted to stop that. They recognized that that was wrong, and that is completely opposite of what the Bible says. So they use their own judgment to judge that God's moral system in the Bible was insufficient. The Christians and Jews apparently are the ones that did that. Who were the only ones who fought against the horrors of eugenics, forced sterilization of those the state deemed inferior, and China's horrific one-child policy? The Christians and Jews. I mean, eugenics was a bad idea up front, and I really don't think that right there is... I mean, can you really say that you're against eugenics when you have all of this, like, murder and killing in the Bible? I really don't think that you can tick off a good mark and be like, yeah, but we helped end eugenics. Like, just because a Christian may have led that particular campaign, that doesn't make the campaign itself a Christian thing. And just because somebody may have rationalized it with their own particular religion doesn't make it a religious thing. And then number 5 here is just the most hilarious thing. Judaism and Christianity created civilization. What in the fuck do you even mean by that? Oh, fuck me. A world centered around God has allowed us to pursue the great blessings of God, beauty, justice, truth, and freedom itself. Such things mean nothing without God's presence. How? How does it mean nothing? I don't understand this, because it seems like the Bible is totally antithetical to justice, truth, and freedom itself. So I don't see how you think that a Christian God helps promote those things. And how do they mean nothing without God's presence? Like, I don't understand that either. I think that they mean just as much now without God than it did when I was a Christian. Also, civilization existed way before Christianity and Judaism. There were civilizations that existed at the time of the Jews in the Old Testament. And there were several civilizations, successful ones, that existed prior to that. And there are many civilizations after that that failed. Atheists may enjoy such values and even benefit from them, but they are only living off of what others have created. The exact same thing for you. I mean, nobody here was around when civilization was created. Nobody here was around when the United States was founded. But just because, like, a good number of people were Christian when the United States was founded, which is demonstrably false. Like, the majority of people that like crafted the founding documents and whatnot were not as Christian as you would like to think. I'd suggest Andrew Seidel's The Founding Myth book if you want to check that out, because it's an awesome book that totally dispels that idea. There is no real reason to pursue any of these values without a sense of purpose. Purpose itself is meaningless without God. I disagree. We all create our own purpose. We all give our own lives meaning. So we don't need a God in order to dictate the purpose and meaning of our lives, because we do that for ourselves. Even Christians, when they assert that God gives their life meaning and purpose, they are the ones that are dictating that. They are the ones that are saying that. It's just the difference between me and them is that I'm not saying everybody has to have my meaning and my purpose, whereas the Christians are like, no, everybody has to have our meaning and our purpose. Without God, there is no reason to have children or to hope for the continuation of our family name or our values. Well, that's kind of bullshit, don't you think? I mean, obviously there are reasons to have children if you don't believe in God. People want to have children. I wanted to have a child. Like, even though I didn't fully believe in a God at the time, and even after that point, losing my faith, I still wanted to have a child. There's a point to having children if you don't believe in God. I don't understand why you're making this connection here. There's no reason to die for our country or for freedom. I don't think that you should have to die for your country. Like, why are you glorifying death here? Well, I mean, Christians, they glorify death every Sunday, right? After all, what's the point? In a world without God, we need only do what animals do. Mate, eat, and make sure not to be eaten. We need only live for today. Well, that's a very distorted view of what it means to do what the other animals do. For one thing, we're a societal species, so we live in societies. We need other people, and because of this, we have developed societies, and we develop these general rules that societies live by. And just because we all seem to have a similar set of moral values in each country that allows our society to keep on prospering does not mean that God was needed in order to do it. And while we are just another animal that's living here on this earth, you're negating the fact that we are social creatures and we live in a social group. And as that social group has grown, we have developed various ways in order to control the society that we live in. So no, in a world without God, societies are still very much needed because of our biology. This is contrary to the notion of civilization. By definition, civilization contemplates a future that is better than our present, and we derive lessons from the past to do so. Well, I mean, I don't know if I would agree with that definition of civilization. So it seems like to me, you're describing civilization in a way that best suits your needs at this particular point in this entire article, because I would define civilization as, you would find, anywhere else in the dictionary. Like, for instance, just typing in define civilization into Google, you get the stage of human social and cultural development and organization that is considered most advanced. I would agree that civilization is about progressing forward and advancing the human society, right? The human social and cultural development. I feel like maybe that is what you're talking about in this, but you're putting it in kind of a weird way. That's regardless of a god. Like what defines a civilization is regardless of a god existing. In fact, I would say that civilization in general, like the progressing, exactly what you've said here, the progressing of civilization to be more advanced and to continue to prosper and be more advanced, is antithetical to the Christian ideals set forth in the Bible, because the Christian ideals set forth in the Bible are supposed to be immutable, meaning unchanging. So how does it make sense for you to push this narrative that Christians are responsible for civilization? For what reason again? Like, if it's not supposed to change, shouldn't we all still be living by these first century Christian ideals? It's supposed to be immutable. These are not supposed to be things that change over time, because God is supposed to be immutable. So why the fuck would you even define civilization in this manner? Civilization does not mean we just have a good time on the planet while we are here. Civilization means we seek a better vision for our collective future. We know this intrinsically, but many never quite incorporate it into their worldview. Why are you defining atheism as like a hedonistic type of philosophy or something? Like, I feel like that's what you're doing with this article, is you're thinking that atheists just want to live for now. They want to lay back and eat grapes and shit on a love seat and have it fed to them by naked beautiful ladies or something like that. Like, I feel like that's kind of the vision that you're painting of atheists, and that's really not what it's about. Atheists have empathy. Atheists have all of the other biological things that Christians do. We just do it regardless of whether or not a God exists, because it doesn't matter whether or not a God exists to us. Oh, well, that's it from this article today. This, like I said, this was a bit different of a video going through this article. I would really love to hear what you guys think about this article. I've got it linked down below, and if you will, leave me your thoughts on each one of these points. I think they're all bullshit, but I would really love to know what you guys think. So let me know down below. While you're down there, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.